Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's. Oh, you know what? Before I start into that, let me share my introductory slides here. Okay, Mark, can you see the slide?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
No, yeah,
Oh,
yes, I can. I
you
can see
can.
it.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Lara Flory and I am a volunteer with SCORE. And I wanted to cover just a few introductory items before turning things over to our facilitator today, Mark Goldberg. So today's program is part of a series of webinars that the Cape Cod and Islands chapter of SCORE is presenting in partnership with LC3, the local Cape Cod Chamber Collaborative. And we at SCORE are grateful to the members of LC3 for their support for this effort. For those of you who are not familiar with SCORE, we are a fully volunteer, nonprofit organization and a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. SCORE's mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. SCORE has been doing this work since its founding in 1964 through educational opportunities like this webinar, as well as by providing mentoring to people who are in business or are thinking about starting a business. We benefit from having more than 50 volunteer mentors and subject matter experts serving in our chapter here on Cape Cod and the islands. People who have a broad array of different career experiences and expertise. So if you would like to avail yourself of these mentoring services, all of which come at no cost and are completely confidential, you can call the SCORE office at 508-775-4884 or go online to seek an appointment at www.capecodscore.org, clicking the Find a Mentor tab to get started. Nope. And then last preliminary, today's procedures, all participants other than our facilitator have been muted. We ask that you enter any questions or comments that you might have in the Q&A feature using the button that you should see at the bottom of the screen. Please do not enter them into the chat. It is just easier for us to track one feature. We will answer as many questions as we can get to during the course of the discussion. Be aware that the webinar is being recorded. We will send the link to the recording and other material to all who registered for today's session once the recording is available. And we will launch a poll near the end of the webinar. We would appreciate you responding to the poll before you leave. It helps us to make sure that our educational programming is meeting the needs of our small business community. And now I will turn things over to our facilitator, my colleague, Mark Goldberg.
Thank you, Lara.
You're welcome.
And good morning, everybody. Give me a second while I launch my PowerPoint. Okay. This is very timely because can you see my PowerPoint, Lara?
Yes, I can, Mark.
Okay. This is very timely, everybody, because I just left a networking event. I'm conducting this webinar from our new offices on the first floor of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce on Patty Page Way. We moved here during the pandemic when our lease ran out on our offices across the way in the industrial park. And this is actually the first time that we have been live together as a chapter for over 2 years. So there's a networking event going on upstairs and a monthly meeting. So I kind of looked at my workshop notes this morning to make sure that I was doing everything as it should be done in the workshop. So everybody says that when you are taking a webinar or going to a seminar that you should take away at least one thing. So I'm going to give you the one thing before we get started. Networking. Networking is something that every single small business owner needs to do. They need to do it. They need to learn how to do it well because it expands your sphere of contacts. It expands your sphere of experience. So how do you do it? Be interested in other people and have something interesting to say. So that means that it's other oriented and you have to prepare. So networking is just like anything else in business. You have to have a plan. You have to think about how you're going to do it, why you're going to do it, what are you going to say, how are you going to say it, what is it that you want to take home with you when the session is over. So when you think of the word networking, what comes to mind? Well, some of you will say fear. Some of you say, oh no, not again. But when you think of networking, you want to think about the fact that what it does is it expands your sphere of community. It expands your sphere of contacts. And as a small business owner, that's very important. My wife and I owned a small business for over 30 years. I had 5 people that I communicated with every single week. They were my network. They were in other businesses, they had other careers, but they were the people that helped me think through the issues that were facing me and I for them. So what you want to do is think about what makes networking successful. Well, it's all about meeting people. It's about making connections. And it's also about creating networks that you can use after the event. It's all about listening. If there's one skill that you need as a networker to be an effective networker, it's listening and learning. Because every time you talk to somebody, you learn something new, if in fact you focus on what it is that they are communicating. It's also about building your personal brand and build the network so that your brand can be expanded and enhanced. It's all about follow-up as a success factor. Just because the networking event is over doesn't mean it's over from a practical standpoint, because following up, we'll talk about that, is a critical part. Because you need to stay on people's radar. As soon as they leave the networking event, they are on to something else. They are working on some other issue. They are connecting with other people. So to stay on their radar, you have to follow up. You have to be connected to them. So this is a proactive marketing tool. This is just like social networking, just like advertising, just like sales and sales promotion. It's part of every single business owner's marketing communications plan, because it's a way of developing relationships that will increase your business. It will enhance your knowledge. Every time you connect with somebody, you should be learning something new. I have had for the last 40 years a personal credo, and that is learn something new every single day. And when I go to networking events, I learn from other people. I learn about what they are doing and how they're doing it. It also allows you to expand your sphere of influence, because people can see how you can connect with them and they with you, and then take you to the next level of your engagement with your customers and with the community. It's also a leveraging tool, because if you can meet somebody that can introduce you to somebody else, then you have just expanded your sphere of influence and your connectivity. But great workers, they've got a plan. They have a plan to extend their networking. I will give you an example of that. We had a pharmaceutical client that presented a quarter of our business. They were bought by a larger pharmaceutical client who told us that they didn't have the need for our services. So we went out and replaced that client. That client was then acquired by the same large company. So I found out who was the person in charge of their trade show program, their conventions program. And at a national convention, I made sure that I networked with him. I connected with him. And in a 30-second conversation, I was able to position a meeting at their home office, because they learned something about how we could expand their performance. So what you want to do is you want to have a plan, and you have to work it. Now, most people see effective networking as how many cards do you have in your pocket at the end of the event. It's not collecting cards. It's all about building quality relationships and connecting one person to another. It's connecting beyond that service conversation for, hi, it's great to see you. I learned this morning out of 1 2-minute conversation, the background this person had, where they lived, how they got to the Cape, what it is they were looking for in their engagement in belonging to SCORE. Very short conversation. I can now take that to the next conversation I have with him and expand upon that. It's making sure that you are listening and engaging by pausing, not jumping in and interrupting, because interrupting only does one thing, and it shuts down the conversation. It's all about understanding there's a process. There's a process of getting to know somebody socially, then getting to know somebody professionally, then utilizing that relationship to achieve both of your goals. It's not, hi, how are you? I'm the chief in charge. I own this business. I'm the chairman of. It's a process that takes time. And it's all about maximizing time. When you're in a networking event, it's very short time period. So what you want to do is you want to think about how much time do you need in order to achieve the goal to determine whether they fit into your plan and they into you into their plan, and then setting up the next step. So it's all about thinking about what it is you're trying to get accomplished by attending the event. Now, I'm sure some of you attend Chamber of Commerce after hour, before hours. Many times I go to them and all I see are people talking to people they know. Maybe it's catching up, which is good. Maybe it's expanding the relationships. Maybe it's just because they are comfortable. So it's making sure that you have a plan in order to engage. And it's maybe getting somebody to be your partner to introduce you to other people that they think you might network with. Now, it's all about building community. And it's not necessarily about hierarchy. It's not necessarily you talking to another owner of a business. It may be you talking to the marketing communications person for a Chamber of Commerce. It's all about that collegial relationship that allows you to achieve the goals. Because just because you're seeking out somebody of equal or peer level doesn't mean that's what you need to do in order to achieve your goals. What you need to do is think about where they are in their organization, what are their strengths, what interests do you share so that you can get to the next level, because you have to have something in common with them in order to have that conversation. The person I met this morning came from Rochester, New York. My next door neighbor's daughter is from Rochester, New York. 2 friends of ours who live down the street are from Rochester, New York. I was able to make that connect and move it to the next level. In order for you to be successful with somebody else, it has to be mutually beneficial. You know instantly when you start to talk to somebody if there is a common ground. If there isn't, then what you want to do is find a way to disengage and move on to somebody else, because time is the #1 competitor when you think about networking events. This morning, this was a 30-minute networking event with coffee and donuts before the meeting started. You also want to think in terms of being open to any possibility. Somebody says you're looking for people to communicate with, so you talk to somebody and you find out they're an SEO specialist. Maybe that's something that you have on your list of things to do with your website, and you're open to the possibility of networking with them in order to achieve your goal and they with you. One of the most important elements in networking is authenticity. And when you are authentic, you are not positioning yourself first. You are listening, you are engaging, you are taking in what the other person has to say. And you are not one-upping them. So what you want to do is think in terms of being authentic in your communications. And you want to remember that networking is a long-term investment. It's a long-term investment because what you want to do is think in terms of not today, not tomorrow, but over a longer period of time where this person and you can benefit each other. Well, networking does fail. You go to a networking event, you walk away disenchanted. I've walked into many networking events and left because I did not feel welcome. They fail because you talk too much and they talk too much. And it's boring when the one side talks so much that you don't have a chance to engage in the conversation. They spend too much time talking about themselves, and you get bored and therefore are not listening anymore. You're thinking about where you're going to go for lunch. Sometimes they fail because the person you're talking to uses jargon you can't understand. And the worst thing that you can do is talk to somebody using jargon that they don't understand, because they turn off. And they are not going to say, whoa, whoa, stop. Tell me what ATCP means. And when people talk in generalities rather than specifics that you can connect with. When networkers one up one another, it is a competitive situation that is lose-lose for both people. When you think about having something to talk about, you might think about books, you might think about movies, you might think about vacations. So if I say my last vacation was to Alaska, and the person I'm talking to says, oh, we went to the Galapagos Islands. Well, what do you say? Rather than saying, oh, Alaska, that sounds pretty interesting. Tell me more about your trip to Alaska. So what you want to think about is those things that will make your networking experience successful. Now, there are some myths that you need to think about. Number one, it's not about the quantity. It's all about the quality. If you walk away from a networking event with just one positive, beneficial networking connect, it's successful, because you would not have met that person otherwise. It's not about meeting the big shots. It's about connecting with decision makers who can help you and you them. You don't have to have a pitch, because it's not a selling situation. What you have to have is a conversational base. What are you going to say if somebody says, tell me about what you do? Well, I own a small business that focuses on training and measurement. We are performance improvers through what we offer. It's not about the selling. It's about connecting. Well, tell me about yourself. Well, I lived here on the Cape for 10 years. My wife and I lived in Westboro before that. We have 2 grown daughters and 3 grandsons. Something about you, prepare what you're going to say, but not a pitch. And remember, networking occurs every place. It's just not in an after hours or before hours. It's standing in line at the supermarket. It's at the hardware store. It's at a Cape Cod baseball game. Connecting with people allows you to move to areas and areas of influence that you did not have before. So remember that networking is a great way. My grandfather was a fantastic networker. If we were standing in line waiting for a seat at a table in a restaurant, he knew the personal history of the people in front of us and back of us before we got to our table. So what you want to think about is being open to communications. Now, what are the traits of what I call a master networker? They follow up timely on referrals. You've talked to somebody, they have a very powerful knowledge of social media. When you get home or back to your office, you send them an email. It was great chatting with you. Let's see if we can't set up a time to have coffee in the next week or two. How is next Thursday morning work with you? Or if in the afternoon, let me know. Timely follow-up. Why? Because you and they both go back into the fray as soon as you leave the networking event. And if you want to make the networker that you've met part of your community, you got to stay on their radar. Positive networkers have a positive attitude about networking. They go with an objective. They go with a smile on their face. They go ready to communicate. They're enthusiastic and motivated. And their voice and the pacing of their voice and their nonverbal communication tells the person they're talking to they're excited to meet them. They're also trustworthy. They talk in facts. They're a good listener. Listening is 70% of networking, not talking. Listening to understand what they are saying. Listening with the intent to understand is critical, because many people listen with the intent to reply. And being committed. The whole time that you're at a networking event, spend the time networking with people you don't know. You might say hello to the people you are familiar with and you connect with on a regular basis. You might share a few moments, but making the networking event work for you is to expand your base. And use that great word, thank you. Two very important words. Be thankful for the time that people have spent with you. As you depart and you shake their hand or give them a fist bump or an elbow tap, whatever's working for you today, thank them for their time. It's also neat to be helpful. A master networker is helpful. If you and they are not on the same wavelength, but you know who might help them get to their next level, go introduce them to somebody else. They'll remember that. And along with authenticity comes sincerity. Understanding them, that nod of the head while you're talking says that you are engaged, you are present in that conversation. And presence is very important, not looking around the room looking for your next connect. So what you want to think about is the networking starts at a networking event, and then you need to be dedicated to working your network. And maybe it's setting up networking events online, maybe having a Zoom call once a week or every other week or once a month with the network and sharing issues. So what you want to do is think in terms of taking that next step to becoming a master networking worker. So what makes networking work for you? Arrive early. Be ready to engage. So what you want to do is think about, if it starts at 8 o'clock, be there at 5 minutes to 8. So you are there, ready to engage and welcome people. What you want to think about is focusing on common points so that you can gain points of interest for yourself. And then take those points to where you want them to go. Answers that you give need to be more than yes or no. They need to be what's called flavored and textured. They need to have adjectives. They need to have adverbs. They need to have words around them that allow that person to create an image in their mind of what you are communicating about. Nonverbal communications is 55 to 60% of all your communications every moment you're awake. And networking is even more so. If you are talking to somebody and they start stroking their chin, they are thinking about what you're talking about. If their eyes go up to the ceiling or down to the floor, they are giving consideration to what you're talking about. If their eyes go over your shoulder out into space, you have lost them. You need to bring them back into the conversation. So watching nonverbal communications is critical. So what you want to do is think in terms of providing them options for communicating when you post the event. And always have your business cards ready. They are not your first line, but they should be available so that you can give them when the other person you're talking to indicates they are interested in having your card. Now, one way of preparing is doing self-talk. Many people fear rejection when meeting somebody they do not know. So using self-talk helps before you go in. You're in your car, you're sitting in the parking lot, and you can use some self-talk. I am here to meet some people. I am here to engage. I am here to get to the next level of my goals. And wear a name tag. Even if they provide you with a name tag, wear a name tag that has your name and your organization. Many people, including myself, have a tough time with remembering the person while we are talking. So If you wear a name tag and they are wearing a name tag, when you disengage, you can use their name again to remember who they are. And that is an important element of authenticity, remembering who you're talking to. So you might have a quiet lunch or some quiet time in your car before you go in, just to clear what's on your mind from whatever is going on in your daily life. You want to volunteer whenever possible at a networking event that gets you there early and gets you involved in the process of networking and talking to people. Maybe you want to go with somebody you know that can help you engage with other people. Always think about your goals. Maybe a Post-it note on your steering wheel. Maybe some conversation starters, things about current affairs, things are going on in the community. Maybe best-selling books or popular movies. Maybe business trends. Something you read in the financial news you think might be a good conversation starter. So when you think about it, getting there early, take a moment before diving in, and then preparing that 30-second introduction about yourself is a great way of gaining confidence and positioning yourself for success. Now, sometimes it's important to find an accountability partner. That's somebody that you can talk to about the event after the event, and will check in with you periodically about how you are doing in expanding that network and following up with those people you met. I have a person I met recently, and I said to them, if you think you need it, I could be your accountability partner and check with you once a week to see where you are in achieving the goal that you set up for yourself, and that is building stronger relationships with the 3 people you met. So you might find somebody in your office or somebody you know as an accountability partner that could check in with you, not nag you, but check in with you to make sure that you are on goal for achieving that follow-up objective. So there are many things you want to think about and prior to it, but you want to think about what kind of questions can you ask somebody to get them to talk about their business. What's new in your business? What have you made your primary differentiator to get attention during this hibernation period? Why did you start your business? Or what's your most popular offering? And have you changed your offering as you're coming out of the pandemic? Or who's your target market? And has it changed? Get them to talk to you. Give them a reason to have this conversation. So think about that beforehand. Write it down. You don't have to bring it in with you, but write it down. Now, many times I carry a 3x5 card in my pocket so I can take notes when I'm talking to somebody, especially their name if I don't get their business card. So you may have some cues on the one side of the business card that reminds you of things you want to talk about. Books, names of movies you've seen. So think about this, because preparation is critical to success in networking. Now, your business card is your pocket billboard. It's the way that you get to the next step. It's the way that they communicate with you afterwards and you with them. But just don't give your business card out willy-nilly. Wait until there is a reason for you to provide it. It gives your business card, it gives this connection importance to them. So what you want to think about is keep your business card in your pocket, and remember, when they give you their business card, hold it in your hand, look at it, read it, look at their logo, maybe even comment on their logo if it's an outstanding logo, so that you can show to them that their billboard is important to you. And what you want to do is leverage your billboard. Now, sometimes what you want to do is you want to focus on what you want them to do. So you might create a business card for networking. And does it say who you are, what you do, what your offer is? Does it say to them what you want them to do? Somebody made up a business card and called me with their telephone number. Somebody did one, Elizabeth Mayberry did one with her website because she wanted people to visit their website. Does it hook the networker to remember you? Because that's what you need to do in order to take the next step. Now, most of us are into virtual networking. Some of us are lucky enough right now to start to be going to live events. I went to the CCYP Shape the Cape event. I recently went to a before hours meeting. Our SCORE chapter is having their first meeting right now. First meeting in 20 months. Everything else has been virtual. But if you're going to be doing virtual, remember that if you're using Zoom, the 3 dots in the top right of your picture, put your name and your organization so people can see who you are and what organization you are. You also might want to put in the chat box how to connect with you. So you want to think about presenting yourself being well dressed in with contrast to the background so that you don't blend into the background. Make sure your camera is at eye or above eye level. If at home, post on the door of the room you're in that you have a meeting in progress. And other than having water or coffee, leave your lunch or breakfast someplace else. Watch your posture, sit up straight. Use a clutter-free background. How many of you have seen backgrounds with bookcases with pictures in them? Make sure that they are organized. Or use a virtual background, but make sure that you are not obliterated by the virtual background. And you see that all the time where the person disappears. And test your lighting so that you don't have glare on your face. Remember, just like in live networking, it's all about them. But sell yourself when it's your turn. It's all about building those relationships, learning as much about the other person as possible, and give them enough information that they will want to have a conversation with you afterwards. And if you say, I'm going to call you Thursday morning to set up an appointment, make sure that you do that and you exceed their expectation. If you indicate you're going to send them something and have it to them by next week, do it as soon as you get back to your office. So what you want to do is, as we said, be helpful, offer solutions. People that offer solutions show value, and value is a very important part of personal branding. And remember, perceptions become facts. They're a very important part of the first encounter. You might want to think about this formula. We help who by what to how so they can why. So SCORE helps entrepreneurs, the who want to start their own business, what, with educational webinars and mentoring, how, so they can be successful in business and financially secure, the why. So think about what you're going to say to them so that they will understand who you are, what you do, how you do it, and most importantly, why you do it. I am a firm believer in the why first, before who, what, and how. So what I want you to think about is approach every encounter with an open mind. Pay attention when someone else connects with you. And what you want to do is identify 3 people who you feel comfortable approaching and approach them. And you can tell by their nonverbal communication if they're approachable. Make sure you have the goal of having a pleasant conversation and set yourself up to follow up. Be sure to do reality checks to assure that the continued relationship is mutually beneficial and genuine. Because networking is an important part of business. Set an objective before you go. Smile and engage. Smiling with your eyes says, I'm open, I'm warm, I'm approachable. Come talk to me. Prepare that opening line to get the conversation going. And it should be one that gets them to respond with more than yes or no. Know what you want to learn before you go. It's part of setting your objectives. If they look like they're going to want to shake hands, make sure it's a firm, warm handshake, but not a bone crusher, or use a nice fist bump or elbow bump. Carry a 3x5 cards for notes and a couple of pens. You can only remember 7 new items of information before one pops out. So it's okay to take notes while you're talking to somebody. And if they look like they don't want you to, then just say, I'd love to take a few notes so I can remember what we've talked about. Make sure you follow up in a timely manner. 24 hours to thank them for their time, and certainly within the week to set up something for the next level. If you find there's no potential for a connection beneficial to you or them, treat them with respect and thank them for their time, and hope they have a nice rest of the event. And remember, listening is more than an activity with your ears, it's with your whole body. If you're talking to somebody and they take a half step forward, they are engaged with your conversation. If they fold their arms high and tight across their chest while you're talking, you've said something that either they don't agree with or you have offended them. So think about effective listening, because the better listener you are, the higher potential you have for creating a longer term connection. Well, I hope that you have picked up a point or two in the last 40 minutes. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them. Or if you want something you would like to share about networking, I'm sure Lara can arrange for you to communicate. Lara?
Yes, thank you, Mark. Very nice. So we just had one thing in the chat, and just to make sure I answered it correctly, someone asked if we would send the slides, and I said we would send the slides and the recording. Is that correct, or do we just send the recording?
No, I'll send you the slides by about 11 o'clock, and then you can send them out.
Okay, perfect.
What do you think about, what do I think about speed networking events? Lauren, I think speed networking events can be very effective, but understand that you're only getting very superficial. So you need to think about what it is your objective is, and get that across to the person you're talking to. When you do that, then you need to have a really effective follow-up plan in order to take it to the next level, because you won't have the time in the event to do that. Does that help? Okay.
Lauren answered things. Do you see we have a second question that came in as well, Mark?
Okay.
How do you introduce yourself to a hostile group when tight circle talking and it's clear you are not welcome to join in?
That's tough. And I personally have been in those situations where it is such a tight-knit group, and sometimes hovering helps. And when you see a nonverbal clue that allows you to at least start a conversation with one of them, then you might be able to engage with the others. The other is to talk to the organizer about the fact that you found the environment not conducive to networking, and what can they do at the next event to make it more conducive. Sometimes the organizer is not aware that it's such a tight-knit group that outsiders are not welcome to engage in conversation. Any others? Okay, well, I appreciate your time, and hopefully you've picked up a point or two.
Oh, wait, we had one sneak in on us here.
Okay.
If you are an introvert, how do you overcome that?
Okay, the best way to do it is practice. One way is to look in a mirror and introduce yourself and start a conversation and see how you look. If you look like you're not comfortable, then smile. Smile to yourself. Practice. Find somebody to practice with, engaging in starting a conversation. I can honestly tell you that most people think I'm an extrovert, but I am an introvert. And going to a networking event is fearful for me. It's almost like it was getting on a 10-foot ladder until I was able to talk myself out of the fact that I'm not going to fall off. So what you want to do is practice. Look in a mirror, try it with somebody else, and build your confidence that you have the ability to expand your sphere by talking to other people. Okay. Any others, Lara?
Are newspaper ads good?
What?
Yeah, so someone's asking, are newspaper ads good? Can you expand on that question just a little bit? Okay, is it worth advertising your business in the newspaper?
Well, that's a tough one. I write a column for the Cape Cod Times. So I'm a little bit biased, but I think that you can achieve goals advertising in the newspaper as long as you are using an integrated marketing communication strategy, and that is social media, traditional media, which includes advertising on radio, newspaper, but find when the newspaper is doing subjects that connect to your business. Many times advertisements get lost. So you need to make sure that you can position your ads important. Cape and Plymouth Business Magazine it has a great way to communicate. It's also a function of who your target audience is. And you have to ask yourself, does your target audience get their information from reading the newspaper? If they do, then you need to be there as part of your marketing communications strategy. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you on that. And I don't see any others coming in, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Lara. And
thank you.
I think you've posted the survey, so I'm going to sign off. How's that?
All right. Well, everyone, thank you again for joining us and have a great day.